Hi there, I hope you're doing well today. We're coming on today to do some muscle release, and you can either use soft spiky balls, so these are 7.5 centimetre and they're rubber, so they've got give in them, they're not like the hard plastic ones, or you can use a pair of tennis balls. Either is good, so I would rather you use tennis balls if you've only got the rigid plastic spiky balls, because they can be quite harsh. Because what we're going to do is we're going to work through the back of the legs into the glutes, up the spine, and then we'll do a little bit of front of thigh release and front of shin as well, actually. Not necessarily in that order. I'll try and flow through as we go. It's a good way of checking in on your body and noticing where you hold tension. So the aim of today is to be comfortable and relaxed. We're not pushing into pain. We're pushing into first signs of resistance, and you notice resistance either by feeling that the muscle that you're working on is trying to push back, or you start holding your breath or creating tension in other parts of your body. So if you start to recognize any change in your breath pattern from a soft regular breath into a hold or a resistance, or not being able to draw the air in as easily as you were before, go gently on those areas and soften into them. If you notice any tensioning in your muscle group against the ball, again, you need to take the pressure off and go gently. I also have a head cushion or have a pillow, because when we start working up the back, because it's lifting you away from the floor a bit, it can be useful to have a head cushion or a block. Either or both. If you have a couple of cushions handy, I'm going to grab a block as well, actually, because sometimes, depending on how comfortable you find this, you can use blocks and cushions to make it more comfortable for you. So I'm going to come into a sitting position, and I'm actually going to use a tennis ball because probably it's the most available thing to most of you. And we're going to start off behind the knee. We're not pushing up into the back of the knee, but you'll just place the ball behind the knee, and you're going to then pull the shin bone towards your thigh bone, creating a bend in your knee, and you're feeling for pressure in your calf muscle or in your hamstring, and you're just drawing that into that spot there, and you're going to just continue to breathe smoothly and easily in a nice natural, you're not over breathing, you're just letting the air continually move in and out of your body. And notice if you hold tension instead of just natural breathing. We're then going to move it down an inch or so, and you're going to draw the leg back in again, and you're going to notice what kind of tension or sensations you get in the calf on that lower bit. And you're just going to breathe. Continue that free flow of air. And what you want to do is sort of 3 to 5 breaths, noticing if there's any holding or fixing or tension created. If there is, you can work for a bit longer on those spots and try and soften into them. And then as you go down the calf, you can actually lay the leg out and let the weight of the leg sink down onto the ball. So it's now in my mid-calf. And again, I'm just noticing what that feels like. And then I can bend the opposite leg and I can slide my bottom back an inch, and then I'm now getting more onto the tendinous area of the gastroc and I'm just letting the weight of the leg sink onto the ball, checking in on my breath, making sure I've not got any tension in my body and you're not trying to fight anything. And then you can move a little bit more and let the ball go down, further down that tendinous part of that large muscle on the back of your calf. And you can move all the way down until you're just above where your Achilles tendon is. You don't want to get down onto the tendon, but you're just working where it feels soft tissuey. You can add some gentle side to side rocking of the leg, and that can be quite gnarly in terms of, for me, when I get lateral onto the peronei, some of the long tendons from the foot, it can feel quite tight, so you can rock from side to side, and you can work back down through the calf, rocking the leg from side to side, adjusting how much you let the leg sink into the ball depending on the sensation you're getting. So if it's very painful, you might need to hold the leg a little bit, or you might need to use a block maybe under the heel to manage how much weight is going down into the ball, and then you could roll the leg in and out, perhaps instead of rocking from side to side. So you're modifying it according to the sensations, but rolling that calf muscle side to side over the ball. Now you've worked the central line, you can just work that way, and you can, if you have strength in your upper body, you can even take the weight in your arms and just slide the ball up and down, turning the foot out and getting into that lateral line of that peronei tendons and muscles, and then you can turn the foot in and get onto that medial muscle belly in the calf. And you're working to suit your body. If this is too much for you in the shoulders, just keep working as you were before with the side-to-side movements or the point movements without as much slide and glide. And then I want you just to take the ball away and just put both legs out. You can sit back and relax and just notice the change in sensation in your calf muscle that you've worked compared to the calf muscle that you haven't. Noticing you might feel sort of more awareness of that calf, like there's more circulation, a slightly zingy feel in it. It might feel wider and softer down into the mat than the other leg. So you're just noticing, letting the brain recognize any changes. And then we'll do the same on the other side. So putting the ball just behind the knee, but not pushed up into the back of the knee. It's just in between the calf and the hamstring. And we're just going to pull that leg in, finding that tension spot and breathing. Noticing if the tension creates a change in your breath patterning, and you want to make sure the pressure is not so great that you change your breath. So if it's really tight and you want to hold your breath or create tension in your shoulders, move the foot away a bit and have less tension until you've found that softness in your breath and your body, and then you can always build on that afterwards. So again, you're looking at 3 to 5 slow, steady breaths in each spot, noticing if there's changes in your body, and then moving the ball down a little bit. And you might find areas of the body where you go, gosh, this feels really tight. And then you can just spend longer there, or make a note of those spots as areas you need to go back and pay attention to. So I use this sort of soft tissue release as a way of, some people might go and have a massage. Some people might not like massage, or for whatever reason not get round to it, or not want to pay the extra cost of that kind of thing. And we're just working down the middle of the calf on the other leg, letting the weight of the leg sink down over the ball, so you're getting the trigger pointy sensations on the back of the calf, and keeping your free fluid breath. But it's a good way of checking in on tensions in your body. If you're not somebody that goes for a massage, you can just do this for half an hour or so, once a month even, and just check in. Where are you holding tension? Can you change those tension patterns to build more awareness into your body? So you start letting go, and then all the way to the bottom. And then you can rock the leg from side to side, or turn the foot in and turn the foot out, so the whole leg is not just the foot and ankle, but the whole leg is rolling in and out, changing away the way you move the leg. And you can then move back down, so the ball moves up your leg. And you can get all the way from the inside of the calf to the outside of the calf, all the way up, back towards the top of the leg. Never go right behind the back of the knee in this position. You don't want that pressure in the back of the knee. There's a lot of delicate nerves and blood vessels that go across the back of the knee. So with a straight leg, you don't want to put the ball in that spot. Then I'm just going to move the ball so I stay in the middle of the mat. You could then do the sweeping movements if you've got the strength in your shoulders, without your shoulders coming up to your ears. Keep your shoulders down away from your ears and glide the body forwards and backwards. If this is really difficult, you could sit on something that's slippery, so it's easier to slide your bottom along the floor. So if you've got a piece of plastic that slides on the floor, or if you're on a hard floor like a wooden floor, you could stick a towel under your bottom and glide backwards and forwards, keeping your bottom on the floor, but just sliding on the towel, so that you can modify all of these things to make them easy for you. None of this should be painful. It can be uncomfortable, but if it's reproducing any pain symptoms that you get, you want to stop. And then I'm going to come to the hamstring on the first leg. and we're just going to rest that leg down onto that hamstring, and then I'm going to roll or swing the leg from side to side across the ball. So we're working across the fibres, and then we can move it up and just let the leg slide in and out on the mat. So you're rolling across those fibres of the hamstring. And then coming up another couple of inches. You can swing the leg in and out, or you could keep the leg fixed and just roll the foot in and out on a particular spot. So you're just exploring what your sensations are. And then we're going to come right up towards my sit bone. I'm just in front of my sit bone now, and it feels quite tendony rather than muscly here, so you're noticing the difference. And again, weight into my hands. I can just sit here and breathe. If it feels tight and uncomfortable, just sit for pause for a moment here. If it feels okay, you can lift and swing your bottom from side to side across that area. I didn't pause after the second calf just to notice how it felt, but you can do that. When you do each part of the body, just take a pause. I'm going to then sit, and I am going to take a pause, having worked up the hamstring to just in front of the sit bone on this side. And notice for me, when I do that, I feel much more upright and much more lengthened through my hamstrings. So I feel like I can sit up onto the sit bone on this side. I still feel I'm a little bit short in my hamstring on the side I haven't released, so my sit bone is still slightly tucked underneath me. So we're going to do the same on the other side. Start off with it just at the bottom of the hamstring, just pushing the leg down into it for a minute. And then you can swing the leg from side to side across those muscular tendons of the hamstring muscles. And then you can move it up a fraction, and you can work again side to side. Sorry about the noise of the garage door opening or closing. Swinging that leg, and then working up towards, slowly towards the sit bone on this side. Again, noticing, is there tension? Does it feel the same on this hamstring as it did on the other? Or does it feel tighter or looser? And coming right up, so I'm heading towards the sit bone now, and you can either swing the leg in and out, or you can keep the leg still and just turn the leg in and out. So you're just rolling the thigh bone over the ball, rotating it one way and the other. And then the last one, I'm coming just in front of my sit bone onto the more tendinousy area. And then you can roll the leg in and out, or you can lift your bottom and swing your hips from side to side across the ball, just in front of your sit bones. And then you can remove the ball, and then just take a moment to sit up on those sit bones. And when I've done that through the backs of the legs, I feel like I can sit onto my sit bones with a nice straight back. Whereas before I started, I was just rocking off the back of the sit bones because that back line of the legs was not able to stretch as much. And you can always test a touch of your toes before you do it, and then retest the touch of your toes afterwards, and notice if there's any change and increased softness. So you're using it as a test, retest, or just an exploration of your body. We're then going to come onto our backs. I'm going to bring a block near me in case I decide to use it or show you how to use it. And I'm going to have the head cushion just above my head in case I want to use it or want to show you how to use it. So I've got my 2 tennis balls. I'm going to lift my pelvis, and I'm going to locate my sit bones and put the balls just above them. And I'm just going to let the pelvis sink to a point where it's comfortable, that it doesn't want to be painful, but you're just going to let yourself sink down. Take a couple of breaths, check that you're not holding or sort of creating tension. Lift again. I'm moving the balls slightly further apart to the sides of the sit bones, and again sinking down. breathing slow, steady breaths. Lifting up and moving a tiny bit further to the sides of those sit bones. Sinking back down. And just breathing slowly and steadily. And then I'm going to lift up and go up a little bit into the muscle bellies around the lower, the sort of deep lateral rotators. So down just behind the hip sockets I am now, and I'm breathing. I'm controlling the amount of weight sinking down by putting a little bit of weight into my feet. So if it's uncomfortable, keep some more weight in your feet and just control the amount of weight you put down. If it's completely comfortable, you can sink right down onto the balls, only if it's not giving you any discomfort. And again, as long as you're not creating tension, and you can keep the air moving in and out gently and freely, and it's not tensing up. We can then go up the sides of the sacroiliac joints. So we're still in that big muscle belly of the glute area now. We're traveling up the sides of the sacroiliac joints. Just breathing. And we're just lifting and lowering and exploring the different sensations as we work up and around those muscles on the back of the pelvis. Notice if they feel symmetrical, or whether you feel you've got much more tension. I've got much more tension in my right hip than my left. So I feel I can sink down onto the left side more than the right. And you're just working all the way up. You're not going into your lower back at this point. The highest point is the bony sort of pelvis area. And you can bring it up onto the, just below the top of that bony pelvis. And you can work all the way around the edge of that pelvis on the back there. Just lifting and lowering and breathing. If it feels completely fine when you lower yourself, you can move on to the next spot and find a spot that feels a little bit tighter. You can then have it in the big muscle bulk areas either side, and you can swing your hips from side to side, which then slides the balls across the fibers, and you can adjust them and swing, a bit like we did when we were moving the leg to side just now on the calf and the hamstring. So you're just rolling the glutes across the ball, controlling the amount of weight with your feet, and keeping your breath slow and steady, all the way up to the top and the back of the pelvis, but not going into the muscles on the lower back yet. And you can put them just right on the edges of your glutes, and you can then take your legs out and back in. And again, move them around so you feel like you're pressing into the muscles and giving some muscle release, like some deep massage into the muscles. And comparing and contrasting left and right. And then you can take them out and just take a moment to settle down into the floor and just notice how much softer you feel around the back of the pelvis and hips, and whether you can just really allow the sacral bone to sink down and widen into the mat, and you can really let the back of the pelvis go and not hold any tension. Then we're going to come up into the lower back. So we're going to come up just above the rim of the bony pelvis, and we're not going to go on the central line where the spine is and the vertebral column is. We're going to go a couple of inches either side into the muscly, the paraspinal muscles that run up and down the back. So you're lifting, you can come onto the sacral bone and feel the bony bit as you lower down, and you keep going up the sacral bone, dropping down until you find you come just off that into some soft tissue. And then you can allow the weight of your body to be controlled by your feet, and you can sink down only as much as your body feels comfortable with. And with that now sinking down, you can do a few different things. You can do a pelvic tilt, so you can tip your pelvis one way and the other, so rocking the pelvis. So I'm flattening my back towards the floor, and then I'm dropping the tailbone towards the floor, so I'm lifting my tailbone up as I flatten my back. So you're going into lumbar flexion and extension over the top of the balls to create a bit of massage, or you can just, again, rock the pelvis from side to side. So you get a little bit of lateral side to side work across those paraspinal muscles. And once you've worked that first area, you can move up an inch. There are 5 lumbar vertebrae, and they're about sort of an inch or so apart, depending on how tall and long your spine is. And so you can work up sort of an inch at a time
Just checking out, does it feel the same when you release the weight on at the next point, or does it feel tighter or softer? Is there more pain or tension on one side of the back than the other? You're just exploring and breathing and softening through your body. So you're not creating pain, you're just feeling that tension and seeing if you can get it to soften and melt. Go up again. And you're just working up sort of the maybe 5 different moves through that back area before you hit the ribs. And so once you've hit the ribs, you've got to the top of the lumbar spine and you've become the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine are where the ribs come from. So I'm doing some various side-to-side movements as I go up. I'm going to do some pelvic tilting, dropping the tail down and tucking the tail under, so I lengthen and flex and extend the back. Just giving in different inputs. You can do 2 or 3 of each movement. You don't have to spend too long, but you're just giving your brain feedback about tension patterns, sensations. And before we go up into the rib cage, we're just going to move. You should feel like you're quite close to the bottom ribs now. So before you go onto the ribs, I just want you to move a little bit wider. So you're about 3 or 4 inches away from the mid-center of your spine, and just sink down there into a muscle called quadratus lumborum, which is can be quite a tight muscle between the rib cage and the pelvis. And some people will get a lot of tension and problems in that muscle. And where it inserts into the bottom ribs, it's quite a nice spot just to sink down into it, controlling the pressure with your feet. So push more weight into your feet if you want to take the weight off the spine or the muscles, and letting the hips drop down towards the floor if you want to add weight. And you're just checking in. If you start to shorten your breath or feel tense, then take the weight off, or the pressure off. If it feels comfortable and you can keep your breath free and smooth and feel relaxed there, even though it's a bit of pressure, then you can increase the release down. And then we're going to take the balls out for a moment and just come down with the pelvis and just notice how the back feels and the pelvis feels. And you can do some pelvic tilting, rolling the weight through the spine and back towards the tail, flattening the lower back and releasing off. Just getting a sense of how that feels in your spine, having released some of the muscles around that area. Then we're going to get the balls again and we're going to come up into the ribs. For some people, at this point, you might want to put a block under your pelvis, because otherwise putting the balls there might push you into an arched back too much. I know for me it's okay. The other thing you might need is a head cushion, which is what I prefer. So we're going to lift the hips up as if we're going into a shoulder bridge, and we're going to locate the balls either side of the spine, just down where the first ribs are. So where we've just come from the lumbar spine and we're finding the bottom ribs, and we're just going to, you're not going to sink the hips down to the floor, you're just going to lower them a bit. And if you've got the block, you might be able to touch the block. So I can touch the block and that's completely comfortable, but equally I'm very happy just holding myself and lowering a little bit lower than the block. If you feel unsure, you can put the block in and see if you can get down to the block. If you can't, that's fine. You're just exploring the sensation and you're checking in on your breath. Is it continuing to move softly and freely? Can you breathe down to where the balls are? And then I'm going to lift my hips up again and I'm going to move the balls up a little bit higher. We don't have to do every single sort of vertebral level, but you can just lift them up sort of a ball's width apart and then sinking the hips down again. If you want to have a cushion or a block there to act as your support, so you can really relax in that position, you can do that. And you can build the block up as high as you need to feel you can relax in that position. Or if you're quite happy controlling the movement with your legs, you can do that. And then we're going to go up once more. If you can push the balls up a tiny bit more with your shoulder bridge position, do. If not, we'll have to work from the other end. So I can do one more just from pushing them up there. And now I've rested my pelvis on the block and I've got my head on a cushion and I'm just trying to breathe into the tension I'm feeling in my rib cage at the back where the balls are. Just breathing slow and steady. So then you can tip to one side if you're on a block and place one a ball's height up and then tip the other side and try and make the other one level. If you don't have the shoulder range of movement to do that, you might have to come up, place the balls together on the floor, and then with or without a block, I'm going to take the block out, roll back down and try to find the balls somewhere on your back until you feel that your spine is between the two balls, and then release the head back down there. Once you've got into this space that I'm now in between the shoulder blades, you can move further up the spine by lifting the hips and moving them down. So then that's rolled the balls up sort of an inch or so. And you can bring the head cushion with you and just breathing with them there. Again, if you still need a prop for your pelvis, that's fine. Some people don't like being put into upper back extension. So just listening to your body. If anything doesn't feel right, then don't do it. This is not for you if it feels wrong. It's for you if you feel like you're getting into areas and working on the tissues that might feel tight and tense. So I'm just rolling down a little bit more, bringing my head cushion with me, feeling the balls in that space between the inside edges of the shoulder blade and the spine. Breathing into the soft tissues. And then I'm going to roll down a bit more, and they're almost up to the top inside corners of my shoulder blades now. That can be quite an uncomfortable spot for some people. So just going gently. Make sure you have got a head cushion, because if you haven't got a head cushion and you're trying to put your head down to the floor, you can often put your neck into quite a lot of extension. So keep the head supported. And then you can slide the balls up and out a tiny bit so they are into your what we call our upper traps. So the top points of the shoulders, the areas which if somebody stood behind you and gave you a shoulder massage, we're getting into those bits now. And you're just feeling those spots there and just settling down and into them. If you feel it's okay for you to lie here like that and breathe and you're completely fine, you can add a shoulder reach. So you put your arms straight to the ceiling and you reach your fingertips to the sky, and then you draw your shoulder blades back down towards the floor. And then you get some movement of those soft tissues over the ball, and it can feel quite gnarly. If you've got tight upper traps, that can feel like quite a nice massage. Or if they're really tight, it might not feel so nice, in which case just lie and breathe and just get used to the softening. If that last exercise has felt okay, you can have your arms here and you can take one arm down to your hip and one arm above your head, and it won't go as far as it should go because the ball is going to limit your movement. And so you can just move your arms like this in a toy soldier sort of movement. You're not trying to push into discomfort or pain. You're just exploring your movements, keeping soft in the shoulders, soft in the back. And then the best part of this exercise is when you then take the balls out, and ideally take the head cushion out if you don't need one, but leave it there if you do, and just lie on the floor, having released up through the paraspinal muscles, having released the back of the pelvis, having released the calves and the hamstrings and around the sit bones, and just lie and allow your body just to soften down into the floor and relax and breathe. And what you want to focus on here, and you can place your hands on your belly if it's helpful, I want you to focus on breathing into the spaces where you've just done the ball release. So I want you to breathe into the back of your waist, the back of the rib cage, all the way up to the back of your shoulder blades. Because by creating more awareness, by putting those pressure trigger pointing balls all the way up through the spine, you can now see if you can maintain some space and movement in those areas that you've just worked with the ball. And just do a few soft breaths. And then we're going to come onto our tummies. So I've got my two balls.
If you want a head cushion for your forehead so you're not, so you can lie on your front with your head down, then that's great. You don't need to have your head down, but some people will prefer it. I'm going to work one ball at a time now. So I'm going to do one leg at a time like I did with my calves and hamstring. So I'm going to come to where the front of my hip is, and I'm going to roll down onto that. And I'm just going to lie with it in that space at the front of my hip for a moment, and I'm going to breathe. I'm going to try and sink and open the hip over the top of the ball. Again, this should not feel painful. It should feel like a comfortable pressure. It might feel towards being uncomfortable, but it certainly doesn't want to be painful. If it's okay, you can then just bend and straighten the knee on this side a few times, maybe 3 times. Just again helping you move fibres of tissue over the top of the ball. And then you can move the ball down an inch or so, further down into that thigh muscle belly, and just breathe with it there. If it's tight, you can just stay and breathe. If it's not tight, you can add the bend and straightening of the knee. And maybe do 3. If you know you suffer from tight grippy quads, you can spend longer on these. Further down the leg. Now the knees tends to start to get lifted off the floor as you go down. As long as it's comfortable, you can then still keep the bend and straightening of the knee exercise. People with very tight quads might find this really uncomfortable, so go very gently, moving down. But all of these tests and works through these soft tissues are giving you a picture of where you hold tension in your body. You ideally want all of these areas to feel similar. They might feel a little bit tight, but loosen off and accept the ball quite quickly and not affect your breath or the tension in the rest of your body. If you're noticing that any of them are causing those changes, then you probably want to pay them some attention. And you can just go and get a soft tissue massage over those particular areas, or you can just do some work like this on your own. Keep the movements. You can do 3 to 5 knee bends on each level, depending on the amount of discomfort. You'll go down to just above the knee. Don't go too close to the kneecap, because you get into the tendinous tissue. We're just working in the muscle tissue. And the last one. And then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. But before I do that, I'm just going to lie on my front a moment and just notice any changes in how that thigh feels in its relationship with the floor and the front of the hip feels in relationship to the floor compared to the other side. So for me, as per usual, when I've released things, it just softens and widens and has a stronger connection into the floor. I feel that there's more surface area in contact with the floor than on the other side, which is still holding a bit of tension. So I'm going to start in the front of the hip joint, not on any bony points. It's on soft tissue. It doesn't want to feel like it's bone on bone with any of these exercises. And it's just at the front of that angle at the hip, and I'm just lying here and breathing softly. There should be no pain here. If there's pain here, take the ball out and find somewhere else. And then you can add some knee bends, making sure the ball stays where it's supposed to be. And then you can move it down. And all of you, when you're doing this, will find different areas feel good and different areas feel bad, or relatively, it shouldn't be good and bad. It should be, some areas feel softer and more able to cope with the ball being there, and some areas might feel tight. So for me, this left thigh feels completely different to my right. It's much tighter, doesn't particularly like the ball being there so much. So it's just working with it. I know that it doesn't normally feel this tight, so I'm happy just to work with it. But if you're not sure what your normal should be, then always go gently to start with, and you can then build up your confidence with this work as you work repeatedly on these areas. Gently working through. What can be quite helpful for people, if they know they have a lot of tension in their body, you could put on your favourite relaxing music while you're doing this, so you really don't focus on discomfort or pressure, you focus on something soothing and relaxing, keeping your breath moving evenly with the rhythm of the music. That can be quite beneficial. So adding other stimulations whilst you're doing this to encourage relaxation can be useful. And then I'm going to move this one down just to the last spot, not too close to the kneecap, just in the muscle belly before it gets down towards the tenderness part. If you are not comfortable lying with your forearms down and your back in extension, then definitely don't do that. I can do that because I know it's comfortable. A lot of people will want to lie flat, and if it's really tight in the front of your hips, you can actually do this. I'll just demonstrate. You can do this with a pillow underneath the front of your pelvis, just to support your lower back, just sort of underneath your lower tummy area, to try to flatten you out of too much extension, if you know that that's not a position your spine likes. So going gently, we've worked through the back of the leg, the lower leg, the top leg on both sides. We've worked all around the back of the pelvis. We've worked up through the spine in the paraspinals and slightly to the sides in that quadratus lumborum area, and all the way up to those upper traps at the top of the shoulder with some arm movements. And then we've turned over and we've worked down the thighs. So by the time you've finished that, you should have a good sensation of the areas that you felt in your body that were tight and maybe didn't like that so much and might need some more time and attention, and the areas that were surprisingly or not surprisingly softer and easier and didn't make you hold any tension in your body. Use that because it's really beneficial for exploring soft tissues and breaking down tension patternings in your body, and then you can go on and do some of the exercises in some of the other videos and notice if things feel easier or more fluid and you have less tension in your body when you're doing those. So have a go. Hopefully you will find it useful and enjoyable and not horrendous, and we'll be on again sometime next week. So we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.